All right. Welcome to the Week 4 prediction episode of the Lewis and Laraib podcast of the NFL season. Starting off here, we have a big week of football, a lot of good matchups. Like always, it's the NFL, baby. Anything can happen. Big news we want to start off with regarding the Steelers-Titans game, in which a COVID outbreak happened within the Titans locker room. That game will be postponed. What are you hearing, Laraib?
Yeah, so this is going to be counting as a bye week for both the teams, and they will play on later on the season. But something to look out for is if another COVID outbreak does happen between these two teams, what is the NFL going to look to do? Maybe schedule another bye week and extend the season by another week or something like that. But that's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, obviously we want to get this game going, but safety and health, comes above everything else in this league, and that's what they're trying to do. So giving them the bye week now, letting the Titans figure it out. I saw they were doing things for teams that have been affected, just increasing daily tests, virtual meetings, the use of masks and gloves in all facilities. So they're doing everything they can to have the season go on, and it'd be best for everyone if we had this season continue because it's been a good one so far.
Yep.
All right, Laraib. So what do you say? Are we ready to get into these picks?
Yeah, let's start off. Let's talk about the standing so far. If I told you we're 3 weeks in the season and the Browns had a better record than the Cowboys, you tell me I'm crazy. But that's how this season's shaping out so far. Well, let's start off with our first game of the 12 o'clock schedule. The Indianapolis Colts 2-1 travel to Soldier Field in Chicago to face the 3-0 Bears. So let's talk about this Bears offense. Surprising to see them be 3-0. They came back and won against Detroit opening week, and then they win second week against who was it that they played? They played the Giants in a close game, and then they come back again and they beat the Falcons last week. A surprising thing is Nick Foles comes in for Mitchell Trubisky late in that game. He throws three touchdowns in the fourth quarter to put them up. So you're going to look at this Bears offense. Allen Robinson, with his connection with Nick Foles, looked great on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. Also, David Montgomery, he's having a very good season so far, 43 carries for 191. So this Bears offense is going to be, it's going to look a little bit more revitalized with Nick Foles in there. Mitchell Trubisky, he was struggling a little bit, but you saw he came back against the Lions, but they didn't like what they saw out of him against the Falcons. So they put in Nick Foles and looked like he did a pretty stellar job. One surprising injury to note is Tariq Cohen tore his ACL, unfortunately, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So look for David Montgomery to have a lot more of that workload, and Nick Foles to try to lead this offense against this Colts defense, which has been stellar again. The past couple of weeks, number one scoring defense in fantasy football so far. You saw 2 pick sixes against Sam Darnold, a couple sacks, DeForest Buckner getting in the backfield. They got a lot of playmakers back there, and they're definitely going to show up. This is going to be a nice game to watch on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to hit the other side of the ball, though, in terms of this Bears defense going up against the Colts offense. This Bears defense, after their great 2018 season, had a rough, up and down season last year. And then through the first 3 games, it looks like they're returning to form for the 2018 season. Not as dominant, one would say, but keeping their offense in games, holding teams to less than 20 points. And in the Falcons game, they did enough to keep that game in their favor. And, they picked off Matt Ryan in the last possession with Tashawn Gibson, basically saving the game for the Bears late. So big thing I want to look at is the matchups in this game. The Colts' stellar offensive line against the Bears' front seven. Khalil Mack, as of yesterday, is questionable for this game. I believe he will play, but he's held a limited practice along with Deion Bush and Sherrick McManus, 2 safeties for the Bears. So if Khalil Mack is hindered in this game and they can't get pressure on Phillip Rivers and that outstanding offensive line and just pushing the Bears around, the Bears could have trouble in this game. They did a good job against the Falcons' passing attack, but if the Colts really want to get the ball rolling, you saw Hill last game for the Falcons have a 30-yard rushing touchdown. So you can't let up big plays like that, especially at home. You're going to be in Chicago. It's going to be cold weather, so you need to stop the run. Make Phillip Rivers beat you with his arm, because on the season, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He looked good against the Jets, but it is the Jets. I mean, you need to have a better performance. The score looked a lot inflated, that also because 2 pick sixes for the Colts defense made it look that way. But Phillip Rivers needs to have a really good passing game because if they need to get the running game going, but if somehow, Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines can't get the running game going, you're going to need to stretch it out to receivers. Mo Alley Cox looks like he's probably Phillip Rivers' favorite target, kind of like that Antonio Gates connection right there. But overall, you need to get this running game going, and Phillip Rivers just stay mistake free, make Nick Foles go down the length of the field and try to beat you. So I like the matchups in this game, but definitely the biggest matchup to look forward to is Colts offensive line against that Bears front seven.
Yeah, most definitely. As much as I like Nick Foles and what performance he had against Atlanta last week, I'm going to have to take the Colts in this one. I trust that offensive line a lot more. And, Phillip Rivers back half of his career, but I think I can trust him more than I can trust Nick Foles. I think this is going to be a pretty tight game in Soldier Field, but I got the Colts. They're going to win this one 28-24.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this game's going to be very defensive, and it's just going to come down to like what quarterback can limit the most mistakes. We saw Nick Foles throw a pick in that game, but 3 fourth quarter touchdowns. He looked pretty good. But it's the thing we've been talking about with when you're in a situation where a new quarterback has to come in and you're game planning, your entire week's game plan is how do we stop this quarterback? And then another quarterback gets thrown in, like the Chiefs against the Chargers when Justin Herbert was all of a sudden thrown into the game. He had a great game. I mean, it caught the Chiefs off guard. So in this game, when the Bears or the Colts defense, which has looked stellar so far, has a whole week to prepare for Nick Foles and this Matt Nagy offensive attack and how they want to attack it with Nick Foles versus Mitch Trubisky, they're going to come out and have a much better game. So I like the Colts defense to take over this game. So I'm going to have it a little lower scoring. I'm going to go Colts 20, Bears 16 in this one.
All right, let's move on to our second game of the 12 o'clock matchup. Jaguars visiting the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow still looking for that number or his first win. But let's talk about this Jaguars offense real quick. We saw James Robinson have, one of his best performance so far of his, short career in Jacksonville. He had a couple touchdowns, but they were behind most of that game against the Dolphins. So that's why you can expect a little bit more checkdowns from him. But this week they're facing against Cincinnati defense that kind of held Carson Wentz, he had 3 picks in that game. So this is going to be a tough matchup for Gardner Minshew despite, how bad the Bengals have been playing. We talk about Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins on that defensive line. But their secondary is looking kind of, suspect. You don't have too many big names out there. Is DJ Chark going to play in this game?
He is questionable at the moment, so it's going to be most likely a game time decision for DJ Chark, but they're definitely going to need him in this game.
Yeah, they definitely are. You saw Gardner Minshew struggle a little bit without DJ Chark last Thursday night. But if DJ Chark's in this game, you can expect him to look for that deep threat target against his Bengals defense. You want to talk about the other side of the ball real quick?
Yeah, so the thing that concerned me with Jacksonville is the kicking situation. So longtime kicker for them who's been really good. He got injured, so they had to bring in Stephen Hauschka, who has been all around the block. He's had his own problems. So kicking in this game is going to be a struggle against Jacksonville. And what I've seen so far, real quick, just hitting on the offense, like you said, how they looked against Miami when they did not have DJ Chark out there as a big play threat. They had no one who could generate any big plays for them. So they kept stalling out on offense, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And Gardner Minshew looked flustered. So, look for that to be a big thing if DJ Chark isn't playing, how they're going to get involved with big plays down the field. If they can't get, a breakout run from Robinson or just a missed assignment on the Bengals side. But in terms of the Bengals offense, I've liked what I've seen, just improvement week by week by week. 23 points and it's against a good defense in the Philadelphia Eagles. Joe Burrow has looked very impressive this season, throwing the ball. It looks like Zach Taylor and this offense are giving him a lot of leeway to, control the offense, and he's done a really good job of doing that so far. What's concerning for me, though, is lack of Joe Mixon in this offense through the first 3 weeks. I need to see him get more involved in this game, especially against the Jaguars, where if you get a lead, you want to contain that lead and get Joe Mixon rolling. So this offensive line needs to do a better job, and they need to get Joe Mixon more involved. 52 carries on the season, 164 yards. I mean, that's like a barely over 3 yards per carry for Joe Mixon. And you need to use him a lot more in the passing game, where a lot of people would say that's his biggest strength, especially from college. You know, he was such a big receiving threat for Oklahoma. And Joe Burrow in college as well, you know, used Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a receiving back, and he had a lot of trust with them. So if they can get Joe Mixon on screens, just routes down the field where he's very comfortable, they could eat apart this Jaguars defense, which quite frankly did not look good against Miami. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick lit them up. I mean, it could have just been like a Fitz magic game where even the best defense out there couldn't have stopped them. But I mean, there's definitely question marks about this Jacksonville defense. I like their young corners, CJ Henderson, but they're going to have a tough task covering AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, the tight ends that Joe Burrow has liked so far. So it's going to be a tough matchup for this Jacksonville defense to stop the Bengals. But I will say, Zach Taylor, you need to find a way to get Joe Mixon more involved. So overall, I like the Bengals in this matchup. I think I've seen improvement week by week by week with them. And as they get more chemistry, they have talent on this roster. So I think they're going to get their first win of the season. I'm going to go a bit high scoring. I'm going to go 28-24. Bengals win this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree. You know, I mean, Miami Dolphins team. A lot of people they don't give them the credit. You know, a couple weeks ago, this Dolphins team they gave Josh Allen some trouble on the in the second half of that game. So you have to give Jacksonville a little bit of a break. But I'm gonna have to pick them in this game against the Bengals. I don't trust that Cincinnati offensive line to to protect Joe Burrow. And meanwhile, on the other side, Gardner Minshew, if DJ Chark plays in this game, him and Keelan Cole are going to cause a problem for that Bengals secondary. So I got the Jaguars in this one. 28-25.
Interesting. I don't like the Jags offense in this game if DJ Chark isn't 100%. But I see where you're coming from. Definitely need to put more respect on the Dolphins, and we'll get to them later. So let's move on to our next game of the week. We have the Browns traveling to Dallas to face the Cowboys. And a pretty interesting game here. We have the Browns coming off 2 straight wins in which their offense has looked dominant, more specifically their running game. So last week against the football team, it was a close game going in the fourth quarter. They only had a 4-point lead over the football team, which looked concerning. But credit to their offense for staying patient, not trying to push it down the field, not trying to make any mistakes. Baker Mayfield looked poised in that game, and just giving it to your 2-star running backs in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, who just completely took over against that Washington front seven, which is very formidable. Just the way they dominated the will of that football team, and just Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt switching off carries. And this running game can be a huge threat for this Dallas Cowboys defense, which, Leighton Vander Esch is going to miss this game. All the safeties and cornerbacks that have been injured, including, Trevon Diggs, who had a pretty good game against the Seahawks. He's questionable for this one. But I will say, if you get another monster game out of Aldon Smith, get pressure in Baker Mayfield's face. A big thing the Cowboys want to do is if they can get a lead in this game to where the Browns cannot rely on those 2 running backs just causing havoc for them, then they can really put pressure on Baker Mayfield to try to make plays, try to extend the ball, target Odell even when Odell's probably not open, and make Baker Mayfield make mistakes, which we've seen before. So Browns for this one, they need to stay patient. Stick to your game plan. If you're down 7, down 10, keep running the ball. Set up the play action pass. Set up Jarvis Landry and Njoku down the field. You need to get just marginal plays. You don't need to go for the gut shot every single time. Just run the ball, and you can have a good shot of winning this game. Cowboys not great against the run. They're not bad either, but no Leighton Vander Esch is troublesome. Sean Lee also is out for this game, which, when is he not out? But definitely stick to your game plan. Kevin Stefanski, don't try to get too cute. And Baker Mayfield, just play your role perfectly, and you can come out winning this game.
Yeah, and let's go on over to the other side of the ball. Dak Prescott, he had a pretty great game, or he had an okay game last week, 400 passing yards, but they still, he had 2 interceptions in that game, a costly one right before halftime that allowed the Seahawks to score an extra touchdown to give them the lead. And most of that game, the Cowboys were trailing, so that's why Dak Prescott's passing yards are a little bit up than usual. But one takeaway from that game was Zeke struggling to run the ball. Only like 50, 60 yards on the ground against that Seahawks defense, which we've seen hasn't been too good on the ground this year. So that's one thing to look out for against this Washington team. The Washington team only had 100 rushing yards against this Browns defense, so that's going to be a key matchup. Zeke, is he going to be able to eat against this this Browns defense? And then that trio threat of wide receivers that we all know, Amari Cooper, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb, they all had another fantastic game against the Seahawks, but we know that secondary is a little bit suspect. On the Brown side of their defense, they had 3 interceptions on Dwayne Haskins, but that's nothing too great to look at. Dwayne Haskins, he's looking like he's going to be a bust so far. And then that Browns defensive line, Dwayne Haskins was sacked 3 times last Sunday, so this Cowboys offensive line, it hasn't been as good as we've seen in the past years. So that's going to be another key matchup. Can this Dallas Cowboys offensive line hold up long enough to give Dak Prescott some looks down the field, and can they give Zeke some opening gaps between that on that line?
Yeah, a big thing to look at is how this Browns defense has been against the run this season, only allowing 94 rushing yards per game, which is definitely really good for this defense if they can stop the run. Denzel Ward at corner is looking like a Pro Bowl corner in the games he's played so far. So that matchup against Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, I will say this is the Cowboys offense in which I can see them. Even if they're down in a game, you can never count them out. Just with, all the weapons they have on the outside and Dak Prescott's leadership and his trust in his receivers, just get big plays down the field. So Browns, you need to limit the big plays down the field, which, Gallup going down the field, you're going to get a few shots to him, a few shots to CeeDee Lamb. Wilson had a really good game against the Seahawks. So they just keep finding new weapons. Schwartz was looking like a good tight end for them. So if you can stop the running game and make Dak just try to air you out, and if you can chew the clock on the other side of the field, that's a game plan for success. However, you're going to Dallas, and Dallas has, even though they're 1-2, I would say they're more of a 2-1 team. They easily could be 0-3, right, with the loss to the Falcons, but there's a lot of things in all the games they've played where they've had chances to win, and they've been in the games with really good opponents in the Rams. And the Rams and the Seahawks, I'm not throwing the Falcons in there. But Rams and the Seahawks, you were in both those games late in the fourth quarter. And this is a big test for this Browns team. I just don't think they have the talent right now and just the familiarity with Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to make a few mistakes this game if they get down, and that's just going to lead to an avalanche of offense by the Cowboys. So I'm going to go big offensive game. I'm going to go Cowboys 31, Browns 21.
Yeah, I think this game is going to come down to the, running backs on both sides. Is it going to be Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb for the Browns, who are going to be running all over this Cowboys defense? There's going to be Ezekiel Elliott coming back from poor performance against the Seahawks and going back to how we used to see him. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys in this one. It's going to be a little bit tighter, though. Maybe 34-31 Cowboys.
Yeah, this is going to be a very exciting game in the noon slot. But let's move on to our next game, which is going to feature the New Orleans Saints traveling to Detroit to face the Lions. In this game, by the way, Dallas was favored by 4.5 against the Cowboys or against the Browns in that previous one. And in this one, Saints are favored by 4 points against the Lions. I'll start talking about the New Orleans Saints offense going up against the Detroit defense. So in this game, it looks like Michael Thomas will make a return this week to play against the Detroit Lions, which is going to be very troublesome for the Detroit Lions secondary, in which they have been hit hard by injury. Desmond Trufant, Darrell Roberts, C.J. Moore, a lot of their other, they lose Darius Slay in the offseason. Their secondary is really banged up right now. So adding the addition of Michael Thomas to the Saints passing attack is really going to cause problems for the Detroit Lions in the back half of their defense. But I will say rookie cornerback, number 3 overall pick, Jeff Okudah, had a really good game against the Cardinals. He had a fantastic athletic pick against Kyler Murray in that one. and he's looking to be that number 3 overall pick that we all knew that he had the talent to do so. So expect him to have a good and make some splash plays in this game, big tackles, big plays on the ball. And then you look at the Saints offense, you need to get your two-headed monster in Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas heavily involved in this one. As a Saints fan, I really don't trust the long field passing attack of Drew Brees. We haven't seen it this season. So it just needs to be like death by 1,000 cuts for the Saints offense. Just dink and dunk, get big plays, try to get run after the catch for your receivers, put your receivers in positions to be athletes in open space and target this weak secondary of the Lions. Big stat to look at in this one is so far in the 3 games, the Detroit Lions have allowed 172 rushing yards per game, which is not good by any matter. We saw Aaron Jones against the Lions go off for over 200 yards rushing in that game. And they held Kenyon Drake in check, but I was kind of confused with Cliff Kingsbury's offensive attack in that one. It looked like their main running back was the quarterback. So, but in this game, the Saints are going to pound the rock with Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. Expect, big gains in the running game. And Saints, like I said about the Browns, you need to stay disciplined to the running game. Attack, attack, attack. Because you're probably going to be up in this game early. You cannot go around it. And then once you're in those third down situations, you're going to have Michael Thomas back. So you can stretch the field with him and have your reliable number 1 receiver, best wide receiver in the game by a lot of people. Having the offensive player of the year back in your offense is going to help this offense tremendously.
Yeah, most definitely. Another key matchup look in that game is going to be the Detroit defense against Drew Brees. Last week, the Detroit defense had 3 interceptions against the Arizona Cardinals. So it's going to be a nice matchup for them once again. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Matthew Stafford and this Detroit offense against that Saints defense that has been looking too well in the past couple of weeks. Last week, surprising game for the Lions. A lot of people thought that they wouldn't win that game, heading into Arizona. Kyler Murray was looking like he could be sneaking into that MVP discussion once again. But he only had 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions last week. And Matt Stafford throws for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. So great game by him. One thing to note is he was sacked 4 times, so this Detroit offensive line is looking a little bit suspect. But another thing to note is Adrian Peterson had 22 carries in that game for 75 yards. So he's a workhorse back despite how late he is in his career. He still averaged 3.4 yards a game. So look for Detroit to run the ball a little bit. DeAndre Swift, their rookie running back, didn't have a single carry that game. So he's still in the doghouse after dropping that touchdown in week 1. But Kenny Golladay came back last week. He had a nice first game of the season, 6 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. So good game back for him. It's gonna be nice to see this Detroit offense in their second week fully healthy again. You're gonna have Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, T.J. Hawkinson. So there's a lot of weapons that this Detroit offense can attack you with. And then Matt Prater, a stud kicker, he can kick it from anywhere on the field. So it's gonna be a nice matchup, especially against the Saints defense, which we saw Aaron Rodgers, you saw that deep ball from him time after time to Alan Lazard on Monday night. And then, last Monday night, once again against the Raiders, they also torched the Saints secondary. I think the matchup in this game is going to come down to this Detroit offense against the Saints defense. Can this Saints defense stay together, not commit any penalties, and, make Matt Stafford use all his weapons and drive down the field to score touchdowns?
Yeah, I really think in this matchup, the Detroit Lions are not going to be able to run the ball whatsoever. Adrian Peterson, he's a great story, but as you said, 22 carries for 75 yards, a little bit over 3 yards per carry against a not great Cardinals defense in stopping the run. Look for in this game, the Saints are going to make it a point to stop the run, making this a one-dimensional game for Matt Stafford in this offense. But if you look at the Raiders game 2 weeks ago, if they can work T.J. Hawkinson in the middle against Malcolm Jenkins and get those 2 stud receivers on the outside and Jones and Golladay, they can cause some problems for the Saints secondary, which hasn't looked that great. If the Saints can stay disciplined and not allow the big play via penalty or just lack of discipline down the field and get them into those 3rd and long situations where they can't run the ball and make Matt Stafford beat you in the pocket. So definitely you need a big game from Cam Jordan in this one. He's had historically really good games against Matt Stafford in the past. and this defensive line needs a rebound in this one. I don't think Marcus Davenport is going to play, but he is getting healthier. So if he's not playing in this game, then he'll play next week. But this Saints defensive line needs to be in Matt Stafford's face all game if we want any chance of getting this Detroit offense off the field and letting our offense come on with Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jared Cook, Emmanuel Sanders, Latavius Murray, and all the weapons we have to just cause havoc for this Lions team. So I'm going to go with a pretty big statement win here for the Saints, and they're after two rough losses. I'm going to go 30-17 Saints in this one. I just think Detroit's inability to run the ball, and I think the Saints are going to play a lot of chew clock, get the ball out of Matt Stafford's hands, and just if he can get three and outs in this game, and just push the ball with Alvin Kamara, who's looked like the MVP so far in the season for the Saints. With him, Michael Thomas returning, it's going to be a tough task for this Detroit defense. So I got Saints in this one.
Yeah, I don't want to say this is a must-win game for the Saints early on in the season, but, you don't want to be going down 1-3 in that division, especially with Tom Brady, in there. So this is going to be, like you're saying, a statement win for the Saints. They're going to go up big against this one-dimensional Detroit offense. Hopefully that defense can, get some discipline like you were saying, but I got the Saints in this one pretty easily. I'm going to say 28-17 Saints. So let's move on to another game in the 12 o'clock window. The 3-0 Seattle Seahawks come into Hard Rock Stadium in Miami to face the Dolphins. Seahawks are a minus
6.5.
Minus 6.5 in this game. So let's talk about this Miami offense against the Seattle defense. Last week we saw Dak Prescott, tear them apart, and then week one we saw them also get torn apart by Matt Ryan. He had, almost 400 passing yards in that game. So this is going to come down to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Are we going to see Ryan Fitzmagic, like you were saying? Once again, we've seen him go against this Saints team back when he was with Tampa Bay, light him up. We've seen him on a lot of teams light up a lot of people. So we thought he had a really good game against the Jacksonville Jaguars last Thursday night, but he 18 for 20, only 160 passing yards, but 2 touchdowns. But a key thing to note is 0 interceptions. That's what it's going to come down to. Is Ryan Fitzpatrick going to keep the ball safe against this beat-up Seattle secondary, and are they going to be able to run the ball? They had 138 rushing yards against the Jacksonville. Myles Gaskin led that role with 22 carries for 66 yards. Only averaging 3 yards per carry. The thing is, if you're going to run the ball, if you're able to run the ball really well, over 150 rushing yards against any team, you're going to be able to milk the clock and then keep the opposing quarterback off the field. Seattle, we've seen them on the back half. Jamal Adams, he is questionable. I think he's actually doubtful for this game. We know they lost their backup safety, Trevon Martin. He's going to be out. And then, that's about it for the injuries. They lost Bruce Irvin against the Patriots a couple weeks ago. Besides that, their defense, the rushing defense has looked pretty good. Last week they held Zeke to not that many rushing yards, but I think the matchup in this game is going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick against that secondary. And is Devontae Parker going to come out and have another, breakout season once again with this Dolphins team after getting a pretty big contract over the offseason?
Yeah, big thing to note in this game, I just pulled up the injury reports for the two teams. For the Dolphins side, it looks like Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, their 2 star cornerbacks, are going to play in this one. And besides that, no really big losses. The secondary in general is banged up, but besides that, no other part of the field is affected, which could cause trouble as great as Russell Wilson has been looking. But you look at the Seattle Seahawks, it's just a murderer's row of Dwayne Brown, Jamal Adams, Quentin Dunbar, Chris Carson, Shaquille Griffin, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Ethan Pochich, Mike Upati, LJ Collier, basically all of their significant starters that are not named Russell Wilson have some nagging injury going into this week. So we don't have we had at least 8 players not practice as of today, including your stars of Jamal Adams and Dwayne Brown and Chris Carson, who most likely will not play against Miami. So in a lot of regards, you look at this game just face level and you're like, Seahawks by 30, But when you really look into it, a lot of Seahawks fans will tell you that this could be a trap game for them. Uh, Big win against the Cowboys, who beat them last year or 2 years ago in the playoffs. You know, coming down to Miami in the Florida weather where they have not really faced that level of heat yet. You love
Here we
whenever
go with that Florida weather once again. You're telling
just
me that the
saying
Buffalo
it's a
Bills were going to
factor.
lose to the
It's a
Miami Dolphins?
for an injured team or a lot of guys who haven't been getting a lot of reps in practice or in games going down to Miami. It's just saying,
Let me see
look for
what the
that.
weather in Miami is going to be.
Look for that to be a factor in this one. But another big part of this is just going to be, let Russ cook. Obviously, that is the game plan. And it's going to come down to this Miami defense, which was a really good job against Jacksonville last week in limiting the big plays. No DJ Chark in that one, but they averaged 6 yards per play on offense, which is not good whatsoever. So if you can make Russell Wilson, who's one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL, have to beat you by going 3-yard out routes and having to do 9, 10, maybe 13 play drives in order to score, that's a recipe to stall the Seahawks offense and get them off the field in this one. So look for the long play drives in this one. Is Russell Wilson going to stay disciplined enough to continue on those long drives? This Miami defensive line caused a lot of havoc for Gardner Minshew last week. So, if Russell Wilson can stay in the pocket and not be able to extend plays, it could be trouble for this Seahawks offense. In no way I'm saying that the matchup isn't favorable. Russell Wilson, 14 touchdowns through 3 weeks, NFL record in that regard. But it's going to be a tough game. Miami coming off 10 days of rest. They're going to be extra prepared for this one, coming off their first one of the season, in which they have a very talented roster. So I think this game is going to be very close. I think it's going to be low scoring. And I have the Seahawks in this one, but I'm only going to take the Seahawks 23-20, and it's going to be a game-winning field goal by Jason Myers.
Yeah, Chris Carson is most likely going to be out in this game, so it's going to be on the backs of Carlos Hyde and Travis Homer. See if they can get some sort of run game going against this Dolphins defense. But I think the Seahawks are going to win this game pretty handedly. Russell, you're talking about a trap game. The Seahawks, you never see them blow anyone out of the water. But I think this is a recipe. Russell Wilson having the start of his life so far this season. So I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one. 28-17 Seattle. Also, the weather in Miami is going to be 88 degrees Fahrenheit with some clear skies. So,
oh man, Seattle doesn't get that. Just saying.
It's going to be a perfect day, clear sky, barely any wind. It's going to be a nice day to throw some nice bombs down the field.
They're going to be sweating before they even kick the ball off. All right, well, let's move on to the next game. We have the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Tampa to face the Buccaneers. Tampa's favored by 7 in this matchup. Things you want to start looking at in this matchup is going to be the battle of the quarterbacks. You have the young gun and Justin Herbert going to make his 3rd start of his NFL season. Meanwhile, Tom Brady going into his 21st season with all the experience under his belt. It's literally going to be that. I'll focus right now on the Buccaneers offense and what they're trying to do. We saw last 2 weeks from this Chargers defense, they're definitely formidable. They made a tough time for Patrick Mahomes. And Teddy Two Gloves last week was just able to do enough to it was like a bend but don't break defense for the Chargers. And Teddy Two Gloves got all the way down the field and just field goal, lob pass to Keenan Allen. So I think just the Tampa defense or offense is going to have a better game in this one. Look for them to establish the run in this game. Joey Bosa is questionable in this one for the defense, but besides that, they still have their stud cornerbacks going to be, matching up against Mike Evans. Chris Godwin will be out for this game, as I see. Yeah, he's going to be out for this game with a hamstring injury. So, again, look to Scotty Miller to be that wide receiver number 2, along with the tight ends. Gronk had a much better game against the Broncos last week. Look for him to get more and more involved as the year goes on with this offense, along with, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and the running backs with Rojo and Leonard Fournette. So, in this one, as we talked about, what Tom Brady's biggest weakness in terms of a defense has always been four-man front getting pressure. So if you make that pocket hectic for Tom Brady and, those two defensive ends and Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram can really get to Tom Brady in this game and cause some havoc for him, he's going to have a tough time. And, this secondary is no joke. Yeah, there's no Derwin James in this one, but just no Chris Godwin as well. It's going to be a tough time for him to really push the ball down the field. So you're going to have to rely on your running game in this one, which really proved itself against the Broncos last week. Leonard Fournette is just a stud running back along with Ronald Jones. You can split the carries there. Coming back home in Tampa, I like the running game as the big advantage for this one. So if they can get the play action pass going, get long downfield lobs to Mike Evans and Scotty Miller, I like Tampa's offense in this matchup.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we see Justin Herbert going against that Buccaneers defense, which just gave Jeff Driscoll headaches last week. They had 6 sacks against the Broncos, 5 on Jeff Driscoll, and then another one on Brett Ripien. So it's really going to come down to Justin Herbert. How well is he going to match up against his Buccaneers defense? I was shocked last week to see my, rookie of the year, Justin Herbert, lose against that Carolina Panthers defense, which we've seen hasn't been, how it used to be. Like, Josh Norman's gone, a long time ago. Luke Kuechly retired. So you would think, after all those missing pieces, Justin Herbert, he could have a little bit of a better game, but no, he had 300 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception. But for the most part, you saw that offense struggle a little bit. Besides Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, they couldn't really get anything else going. And then, and he's going to have his hands full against his Buccaneers defense, which held Broncos to only 184 passing yards and 42 rushing yards. So if the Chargers have any chance of winning this game, it's going to be on Justin Herbert to see how well he can throw this ball. Austin Eckler, a great running back, and Joshua Kelly, the rookie, both of them studs in the backfield. But this Buccaneers defensive line, they're going to come to play. That front seven, we know they have a lot of playmakers: Devin White, Levante David, and Ndamukong Suh. A star-studded cast on that defensive front seven. So look for Justin Herbert to maybe light it up a little bit on the outside of the ball. Hopefully he can hit Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and Mike Williams, all those big guys on the outside. Look for some deep shots down the field. But the matchup in this game is going to be Justin Herbert and how well he can match up against that Buccaneers secondary.
Yeah, just to tag along what you said, this Buccaneers defense has been extremely stout, especially on the front seven. Defensive Rookie of the Month, Antoine Winfield, rookie out of Michigan, has been playing lights out for this Buccaneers defense so far. But, look for Justin Herbert in this game when you're facing that ravenous pass rush with all those players you just listed. A lot of dump downs to Austin Eckler. Try to get Eckler out in space where he's probably done most of his damage this season. And look for Eckler to, go up against those young cornerbacks and safeties of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if they can get him going in like the short passing game, and that's just going to unlock the bombs, like you said, to the Keenan Allens of the world, Mike Williams, and Justin Herbert certainly has the capability to unleash those plays. But I think just the experience will come into this game. I don't think Tom Brady's going to make many mistakes against this Chargers defense. He's going to do just enough to put his team in a position to win. And I think 1 or 2 mistakes from Justin Herbert are going to be the really big factors in this game. So I got Tampa in this game and a pretty big statement for them. I'm going to go 31-17 Tampa in this matchup.
I'm going to have a little bit of closer of a game. That Chargers, that trio of cornerbacks that they have, hopefully they can keep them in check to give the Chargers any sort of chance in this game. But I have the Buccaneers. I just trust Tom Brady much more than I do Justin Herbert, despite how great I think he is and how great of a season he's going to have. Great. I use the word great. But I got the Buccaneers in this one pretty easily. It's going to be 28-21. It's going to be a touchdown game. It's going to be close. That Chargers defense have been playing crazy, playing lights out all season despite the record. What it may show, that defense is pretty good.
You know who the offensive rookie of the month was this month?
Joshua Kelly.
What? No, James Robinson. Surprised me. I thought it was going to be Burrow, but, where's, Justin Herbert?
Well, I thought you were going to ask me something, something pertaining to this game. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Joshua Kelly. He's had it pretty good. rookie season. But, I mean,
Well, he's going to need to have a really good game in this
yeah,
one. But
if they're going to have any chance in this one. But let's move on to probably the craziest game of the week. Baltimore Ravens going into Washington to play the Washington professional team. I mean, is there really much to talk about in this one? Lamar Jackson, tough loss for them on Monday night against that Chiefs defense, which we've seen, it's kind of been showing some statement type of games against the Texans opening night. And then last week against Lamar Jackson, they kind of slowed him down a little bit. But this Baltimore Ravens offense, look for them to have a nice comeback against this Washington team, especially on the ground. We know the Ravens' identity. They have that trio running back in the backfield, and they're just going to hammer the ball down the football team's throat, just like the Browns did last week. J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram, and Gus Edwards. Look for all three of them to have a very nice game, along with Lamar Jackson. I didn't think he had that bad of a game, but it was mostly on the receivers dropping, passes on Monday night. You saw Mark Andrews drop that deep pass down in the end zone, and then Marquise Brown, some hit him in the hands. They're just bouncing off. So look for a nice statement game for this Baltimore offense against his beat-up Washington defense, even though they have Ryan Kerrigan, we know, and they got the rookie defensive line.
Chase Young.
Yeah, Chase Young. So, they have these two studs on the defensive line, but nothing that Lamar Jackson's not going to be able to handle.
Yeah, I think a big thing for Ron Rivera and this football team is you have to stay in this game early, or it's just going to get out of hand extremely quickly. Dwayne Haskins in the last game, it seemed like on the first drive when you had those scripted plays and everything was clicking, he came down, scored a touchdown on his first drive. But when it started to become more of a game of improvisation, taking what the defense gives you, reading off different looks, he looked extremely flustered in this one. Again, they're just, as we talked about with Dwayne Haskins, he looks very passive, very conservative. Maybe it just they don't trust him yet with the full extent of this offense, but he hasn't looked very impressive whatsoever. I mean, the talent around him isn't outstanding in terms of the receivers or the running backs that they have back there. Losing Adrian Peterson and Darius Geis so early in the season. But, I think, if they can't score in their first few drives or try to stop Lamar in this one in that running game, as you eloquently said, it's going to be an extremely tough task for this Washington football team to get going. So I see this thing getting out of hand early. I see a quick 14-0 spurt by the Ravens, and it's just going to be the football team trying their hardest to try to get back in this one, but to no avail. I think this is a statement game after a tough loss on Monday night for the Ravens. And they come out firing. They're probably going to come out to like a 21-3 lead, and they're just going to put the football team away. I'm going to go in this one. I'm going to go 38-10 in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to give the football team their defense just a little bit more respect. I'm going to say 31-10. Another key matchup that we might have missed out on was that Ravens defensive line against that football team offensive line. You think Calais Campbell and Judon and Patrick Queen might have had a bigger game, but look for them to go crazy on this football team's offensive line.
Yeah, just one more point I want to just put out there is, I mean, I trust that this Ravens defense, is going to look at their last week's performance and understand what they need to do, watch the tape, see what they did wrong. I don't think that game was the Chiefs figured out the Ravens defense. What's happening now? I think it was just an outstanding game by Patrick Mahomes. They're going to look at that film, understand the mental mistakes, understand what they need to do discipline-wise, and then just get a lot of those playmakers on all three levels of that defense going. So watch for this matchup to get ugly very early. But now we're going to move on to our next game of the week. That is going to feature – we have the Cardinals heading to Carolina to face the Panthers for another 12 o'clock matchup in this game. Arizona is favored by 3.5 points on the road. I'll take the Cardinals offense against the Panthers defense in this game, in which we saw the Panthers defense rebound in a really big way against the Chargers last week, in which they really responded after being thrashed the last 2 weeks by the Panthers. And a lot of people are questioning this defense and how are they going to respond, especially when you don't have that, Christian McCaffrey on their side of the ball to just give you more and more rest on the field. But they came out with a big performance. They limited the big play. Um, they limited the big play for Justin Herbert, and they stopped the running game and made Justin Herbert beat them with his own arm. So if they stick to a defensive identity in this one, especially against the Cardinals, who we saw last week, Kyler Murray with just way too many mistakes. 3 interceptions in that game. He did not look very sharp in the passing game in general. It seems like too many times he's trying to force the ball to DeAndre Hopkins in situations where he just does not need to. Um, and look for Dante Jackson to take that role against DeAndre Hopkins. That's going to be a big matchup for the week. And how those two are going to line up. Christian Kirk, who did not play in the last game, it's looking like he potentially might come back for this one, adding another threat for the Cardinals offense. But the biggest thing in this one is that young Panthers defensive line, where they have a lot of studs. That one rookie out of South Carolina last year, look for him to have a really big game. But you need to keep Kyler Murray from beating you with his legs, because as much as an arm talent that Kyler Murray is, him out of the pocket, making his own decisions and just beating you with his legs is the biggest weapon that this Cardinals offense has. So if they get out to an early lead, it's going to be trouble for this Carolina offense to try to match them unless Kyler Murray makes mistakes.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we have the Carolina Panthers, missing Christian McCaffrey after the high ankle sprain, but he's looking to be back in a couple of weeks, but not in this game. Teddy Two Gloves, as you like to call him, or Teddy Bridgewater. He helps Carolina get their first win last week against the Chargers, but 22 for 28 and 235 and only 1 touchdown. So he's looking like he's going to be more of a game manager so far for the Carolina Panthers. Not letting him really open up the offense a little bit while he's still getting integrated into it. But this is going to be a matchup. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson against that Cardinals secondary, which looked all right against Matthew Stafford, allowed him to have 270 passing yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. But it's going to come down to, can Teddy Bridgewater keep the ball, have some nice ball security, run the ball with Mike Davis, and then can this Cardinals defense with Chandler Jones and all those big key players like Budda Baker, can they get some pressure on Teddy Bridgewater, make him throw some bad passes, get some interceptions, give Kyler Murray some good field position so they can go down and score. And then for the Panthers, can Teddy Bridgewater, if they're down in this game, which I think they most likely will be, can he hit, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson on those deep routes and give them, put them in position to win this game?
Yeah, I really like what I've seen from the receivers from Carolina. The big question going into last week's game was how their offense was going to look against the when you don't have Christian McCaffrey, who was your offensive juggernaut. And I think the way they diversified, they got Mike Davis going in the running game, sure, but how Teddy Bridgewater spread the ball out to Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, just getting it out to all of his playmakers on the outside and letting them make plays, as we saw he did so well in New Orleans last year when he took in plays for Drew Brees. So having all those different options on your offense is nice. But at the same time, losing Christian McCaffrey, who is the best offensive player on that team, undoubtedly, is a huge blow. And eventually it's going to catch up to them. And I think in this game, not having that super dynamic threat in the short passing game and in the running game is going to spurn them. I think Budda Baker, Patrick Peterson, and a lot of those secondary guys are going to take the task of, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore in this one and limiting them offensively. So if Teddy Bridgewater can limit his mistakes, I can see them moving the ball, but not at the pace the Cardinals will. So I'm going to have this game. It's going to look closer than it is, but I'm going to go 27-24. Panthers score late, fail onside kick.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to take the Carolina Panthers in this game. Teddy Bridgewater, he, looking at the defense he played against last week against the Chargers, that Casey Hayward, Justin Verrett, Chris Harris Jr. in the secondary, and then Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa on that defensive line. So if he can go out and he can game manage against that defense, I think he'll have a pretty nice Sunday against this Cardinals defense, which allowed Matthew Stafford to throw for almost 300 passing yards. And then, so I'm going to have to pick the Panthers in this one. Kyler Murray struggled a little bit against that Detroit secondary, and I think he's going to have his hands full a little bit with this Panthers pass rush. So I'm going to take the Panthers in this one 27-24, and they win. They kick a field goal late to win this game.
All right, so we got same score, two different outcomes in this one. So let's move on to our next matchup of the week. We have the Minnesota Vikings facing the 0-3 Texans. Both teams looking for their first win in this game, and one of them will get their first win. Houston is favored by 4 in this matchup. So I'm going to start with the Texans side of the ball on offense. We saw a good game against the Steelers. The very winnable game in that one. But this offense is really looking like, it's Deshaun Watson against the world. And I really feel for him because that offensive line, you still have Laramie Tunsil back there, but it's just he keeps getting hit week over week over week. And it's such a struggle for him to just keep trying to make plays for himself, getting out of the pocket and finding his receivers. And especially when you lose that DeAndre Hopkins target where he was your safety valve. When you get out of the pocket, you look for number 10 to make plays for you because he's going to be open most of the time and he's probably going to catch whatever ball you throw his way. So in this situation, I really like the matchup here, against the Vikings defense, which has not looked good whatsoever. We've talked about the youth of this defense. When you lose an Everson Griffin and Xavier Rhodes and a lot of your big defensive pieces you've had that made your defense so good the past few years, it's just going to be whatever mismatched offense or defense can really get the advantage in this game. I like the experience of Deshaun Watson in favor of the matchup. I think you can be able to get David Johnson going in this game. Vikings have allowed over 147 rushing yards per game. If their offensive line can hold up for just merely to get David Johnson going, just for the threat of the play action pass downfield to a Brandon Cooks or a Will Fuller, you can cause some problems for this Vikings defense and their youth in the secondary. So I like the offense-defensive matchup in this one. But with these two teams, it's hard to predict anything. So anything can really happen in this game.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we have Kirk Cousins. Very disappointing season for him so far. I had high hopes for this Vikings team despite losing Stephon Diggs, but that defense has just been, they're missing so many key pieces. Either they've, been traded or they've been, they're just moving on to a different team. But let's talk about this Vikings offense. They were up last week against the Tennessee Titans, 17-9 at halftime. But then in the second half, they just let Derrick Henry run all over them. And then we saw Gostkowski have, a career game. He had 25 fantasy points. So, good thing I wasn't playing against him. But a key thing to look out for is going to be Dalvin Cook. Last week, 181 rushing yards against that Tennessee defense. And then we saw the Texans give up 169 rushing yards to the Pittsburgh offense. So if the Vikings can get this run game going with Dalvin Cook against that suspect Texans just defense overall, it's going to be a hard game. They're going to try to keep Deshaun Watson off the field and just run the ball a whole bunch. And then we saw Justin Jefferson, rookie out of LSU, have a breakout game against the Titans secondary. So maybe he can get it going against the Texans. We saw, the Texans didn't allow too many, big plays down the field, but Eric Ebron, you saw he had a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster had a touchdown, but only 237 passing yards for Big Ben. So maybe this Texans defense can limit Kirk Cousins. He's having a poor season so far. So it's going to depend on Dalvin Cook. How well can he run against this Texans defensive line with J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless. Also, another key thing, the Texans were looking to sign Earl Thomas, pair him up with Justin Reed in that secondary, but unfortunately, contract negotiation fell through, and they will not be signing him.
Wait, so is the contract negotiation fell through, or is it just they couldn't get the physical in?
Well, I believe Earl Thomas was in Houston for, a tryout, a workout, but unfortunately some complications happened and everything just fell through, unfortunately for the Texans. A very rough season for them so far.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. And like you said, I think, the biggest thing in this game is just the identities of both these teams. Texans offensively, it looks like sometimes they're forcing it to David Johnson, and then they'll try to air it out to Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and they're probably going to drop the ball a few times. just the offensive identity from this team is not strong whatsoever. Bill O'Brien is in a really tough spot with the roster construction, which he constructed, to be fair. But that's why I like the Vikings in this matchup, because their offensive identity is clear. Yes, they don't have the greatest play caller with Kirk Cousins back there orchestrating the offense, but their intent is to run the ball. And against this Titans defense, I have no trust in, as you said, allowing James Conner and Benny Snell to just gash them last week on the ground. I don't think that's going to change for Dalvin Cook just going downhill, beating up on this suspect Texans defense. And that offensive identity, they're going to stick to it. I like the compliment of Justin Jefferson along with Adam Thielen. It looks like they found their number 2, and hopefully that can sustain throughout the season. He can become a solid wide receiver number 2 for this Vikings team, giving Kirk Cousins more confidence in the offense that he can stretch it out to 2 different receivers. So I really like the Vikings in this matchup, and I think they will get their first win of the season and a big statement win. I'm going to go 28-17. Vikings win this one handily.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Texans in this game. I like Deshaun Watson a lot more than I like Kirk Cousins. He's having, maybe he's having a little bit of, the receivers. You can't trust him as much as he could DeAndre Hopkins, but I really like them in this game. Kirk Cousins, we know he hasn't had that great of a season. 2 interceptions last week against the Tennessee defense. Deshaun Watson, he also had an interception, but that Steelers defense is, something you don't mess with. But look for this Houston offense to run the ball a lot against this Vikings defense, which gave up 134 rushing yards last week. And I think it's going to come down to which one of these running backs is going to have a better game. And I think David Johnson, he's going to have a statement performance, and Deshaun Watson is going to go out there and get this first one for this Texans team, which is, they can't go down 0-4 if they plan on winning this division. But I got this game 27-24 Texans.
I'm going to change my score real quick. I'm still have the Vikings, but I'm going to go 30-24. I'm going to give Deshaun Watson 6 points. But the lack of trust I have with this offensive line and the offensive identity of the Texans, and just the lack of playmakers on their defense, it's going to cause problems for them. I somewhat trust Kirk Cousins. Maybe this is misplaced for me. I think I like him in this matchup. There's the lack of playmakers on the Texans defensive side. Maybe I'm crazy. It's probably going to spur me, but I like Kirk Cousins in this matchup.
I trusted Kirk Cousins week 2 against the Colts, and he let me down big time. So there's no way in hell I'm going to trust Kirk Cousins to go against J.J. Watt, future Hall of Famer, along with Whitney Merciless. I expect them to have a field day against that Vikings offensive line.
You know why you say future Hall of Famer? Because he has nothing now. He's not an all-star now. He's not an all-pro now. He's not a Pro Bowler now. He will be a Hall of Famer, but now he's just a shell of himself. That's what I've seen through 3 weeks. So I love J.J. Watt, but he's in the twilight.
J.J. Watt gave you nightmares the last time the Saints went to NRG Stadium. You see him throwing Drew Brees down in the backfield, giving you the finger wag. Maybe did he have an interception in that game? I don't even know, but let's move on.
I like J.J. Watt. It's no hard feelings, but we've seen the Texans – lack of defensive – 0 turnovers through 3 weeks. They're the only team in the NFL that does not have a 0 takeaway on their defense. Is that going to change against Kirk Cousins?
That's going to change this week if you're going against Kirk Cousins. At least 2. Maybe Dalvin Cook. Maybe
Kirk Cousins coming back strong, proving why he's the best quarterback in the NFC North.
Okay. Let's move on to our first game in the 3 o'clock window. The New York Football Giants go to SoFi Stadium to play the Los Angeles Rams. Rams in this game only projected only -12. You would think maybe they give them a little bit more, maybe -20, maybe -30. Make it a little bit bigger. But let's talk about this Giants offense. Last week they played. What did they play? Last week they played the San Francisco
49ers. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw how beat up that defense was, and still they held the Giants to only 9 points. They're missing Saquon Barkley. What else can you say about this offense? Daniel Jones he hasn't turned out to the pick the Giants thought he would be. 17 for 32, 179 passing yards and an interception. They couldn't get anything going all day long. 15 carries for 66 yards. Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, they're the main targets for Daniel Jones along with Evan Ingram. But no one could get going against that beat-up 49ers defense, and I expect the same thing once again against the Rams. Jalen Ramsey in the secondary, and then, have Aaron Donald on that defensive line, stopping the run and getting pressure on the quarterback. So I think this is going to be a very easy game for the Rams to win once again, and they go up 3-1.
Yeah, not much to say in this matchup. I really like what I've seen from the Rams offensively. Even last week, even though they lost, they come back down 28-3 and have a chance in that game late to beat the Bills, and they have a really good defense. But we saw the Giants defense last week get absolutely gashed by a Jimmy Garoppolo-less, George Kittle-less, all their offensive playmakers gone. It was almost like the 49ers JV team dropped 39 points on this Giants defense, which you can only imagine what Sean McVay and Jared Goff are going to do against this Giants defense. I mean, I've really been impressed with Jared Goff this season. He had a questionable last season, but I think it was more because, you have that giant elephant in the room of Todd Gurley. You're paying this running back so much money, and they get rid of him. They're running back like a running back by committee right now. Darrell Henderson has looked impressive so far, but it could be Malcolm Brown in this game. It could be Cam Akers in this one. And the receivers, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, dynamic as ever, Tyler Higbee. It's really like, where do you go with this team? They have so many different options, and I think Jared Goff is going to have an outstanding game in this one. Not much to talk about. 12-point line. I'm going to give it 30-12 in this game. 31-12.
Yeah, I'll go 34-10. Rams.
I mean, what do you want us to say? I mean, we could talk about, the defensive matchups for Aaron Donald, but it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, so let's move on to probably my most interesting game of the week. It's going to be the Patriots going into Arrowhead Stadium to play the Chiefs. Chiefs -7 in this game, but I think it could be a lot closer than what, a lot of people are expecting. Let's start off with the Kansas City Chiefs offense against this Patriots defense. We saw Kansas City, just tear up that Ravens defense Monday night. Patrick Mahomes throwing for 300 yards and however many touchdowns as he did, tearing apart the two all-pro cornerbacks, Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters both got lit up by Mecole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, and Tyreek Hill. And then you see Travis Kelce. So that Chiefs offense can attack this Patriots defense in a lot of different ways. But we saw this Patriots defense come up big last week against the Las Vegas Raiders. It's going to come down to, can Patrick Mahomes move it against this Patriots defense with Bill Belichick? He's going to show a lot of different reads. He's going to confuse Patrick Mahomes. And, we know who Patrick Mahomes is, but we've seen him get confused a little bit by defenses. We saw him against the Chargers a couple weeks ago. So it's going to come down to this Patriots defense. Can Stephon Gilmore lock up Tyreek Hill? And can some of those linebackers, stop Travis Kelce just for a little bit to allow some of those big defensive linemen to get some pressure on Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right in the matchups in this game. But let's look at the Patriots offense going up against this Kansas City defense. Over the past few years, Kansas City's defense biggest knock has been their inability to really control the running game. But it seems like in these big matchups, in these big games, they always show up and show out because not a lot of teams are trying to run the ball against the Kansas City Chiefs, to be fair, because in most times they're down by 14 or 10 points. They need to pass the ball to break down that lead. But I think in this game, the biggest matchup is going to be just this Cam Newton-led rushing attack against this Kansas City defensive front. Chris Jones is a great defensive lineman, don't get me wrong, but in the running game, he is not as stout. Look for him to have a really good game, or look for the Patriots to try to run at Chris Jones and try to get – because he's very aggressive coming up the field. And when you get that up-the-field presence, that leaves a hole behind him. And you already know Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels are going to try to exploit the aggressiveness of this defense. I like what I've seen from the Chiefs secondary so far through the season. A lot of people had question marks regarding L'Jarius Sneed as the starting cornerback, but he's proven to be a solid cornerback for them so far. And he's going to be tested against N'Keal Harry and Julian Edelman this week. So for the Patriots, the biggest key to this offense is ball control. If you can limit turnovers, we saw Cam Newton had a really bad pick in that game, but besides that, he looked really clean, running the ball. You have Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead, and just all the running backs they have back there. If they can get this running game going, and the main thing is keeping the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. If you can consistently get down the field, score a field goal, and put pressure on Patrick Mahomes to beat you, and he's definitely up for the challenge. But this Patriots defense, which has played him 3 times and has beaten him 3 times, or I think they're 2-1 against the Patriots.
2-1, yeah.
Yeah. So Bill Belichick has the book on the Chiefs and what they like to do offensively. So it's just going to be about outscoring him. Whereas Steve Spagnuolo and this Chiefs defense, this is a whole new offense that they've never played against before with Cam Newton at the helm and not Tom Brady. So expect there to be some, early game issues with just big plays down the field, with just Cam Newton getting loose for a few plays. But my biggest worry for this Patriots offense is, are they equipped to, if they're down 10 points, to really stretch the ball out? We saw in the Patriots game, or in the Seahawks game earlier in the season, that they were down and Cam Newton had an amazing game. But then again, against a suspect defense with the Seattle Seahawks. So is that going to be the same case in this one? I believe not. I think the Chiefs get to an early lead, Patriots try to come back, and it's just going to be to no avail. I have the Chiefs in this one 24-20. Closer than you think, but it's not going to feel as close.
Yeah, this is going to be it's going to be a great game to watch. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Jim Nantz and Tony Romo commenting on this game. So, it's going to be another classic one to watch. But it's going to come down to, like you were saying, can Cam Newton keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands? We've seen this Chiefs defense a couple of years ago. They played the Colts on a Sunday night, I believe, or it was a Thursday night game. And the Colts were just running that ball, and they kept it out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. And they won a tight ball game with Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback. So if you keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, they're going to be, it's going to be a close game. But I still think the Chiefs win this one. Patrick Mahomes, he's had an outstanding season so far, looking like they might be back-to-back Super Bowl champs. And I got the Chiefs in this one. It's going to be a pretty close game, but I'm going to say – I'll say 30-24 Chiefs.
Yeah, definitely like the most exciting game of the week to watch. And there are a lot of good storylines, but if Bill Belichick can pull this one out, the Patriots are going to look like a real Super Bowl contender if they can win this game. Even if they lose a close game, watch out for the Patriots this season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to our next matchup here. We have the hold up, my thing is not loading. Do you have it up?
Yeah, so it's going to be the Buffalo Bills coming into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. The Bills in this game are -3. So let's talk about Josh Allen so far. The Bills, my overreaction from earlier this week was that the Bills are going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. That would be called overreaction segment for a reason.
Overreact.
But Josh Allen, I've been saying this so many times so far during our podcast, but he has improved on his accuracy so much during this offseason. It's been incredible. And then the Bills go out and they get Stephon Diggs, a number one wide receiver, the first time in Josh Allen's career, and they've lit up defenses so far. Josh Allen over 1,000 yards in the season so far and a touchdown. And then you see Stephon Diggs, 288. He's in top 10 receiving yards right now and 2 touchdowns as well. So this is Buffalo offense looking like it's got a complete unit so far. You see Devin Singletary as well. I believe he's in his 3rd or 2nd year in the NFL. He's looking like he's having another great year. So this Buffalo defense is going to have, I think if they run the ball against the Las Vegas Raiders, just like the Patriots did last week, giving up, almost 250 rushing yards to the Patriots. If the Bills can recreate that, keep the ball out of Derek Carr's hands, don't give it to Josh Jacobs, who we've seen. He's had a pretty good season so far. Keep it out of the Raiders' hands and just chew this clock. It's going to be a very easy game for this Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, that if you look at the Raiders last week, you were like, oh my gosh, they were blown out by the Patriots. But that game was actually a lot closer. It felt a lot closer than the final score indicated. Early in that game, it was just a lot of Patriots, they couldn't get past the Patriots' way. Timely turnovers and not being able to get the Patriots offense off the field. And in this matchup, like you said, they're going up against a much more explosive Bills offense. But I want to look at the other side of the ball, and with the Raiders' offensive attack against this Bills team. The Bills early in that Rams game, they looked outstanding, holding Jared Goff to 3 and outs, stopping the running game. And I feel like they got a little complacent in that game. once they went up to that huge lead and they allowed that Sean McVay, Jared Goff offense to really start clicking, and they really spread the ball out. So do I think John Gruden and Derek Carr are going to be able to replicate that offensive strategy of just spreading the ball out along the field, just making the field seem a lot wider, stretching it to sideline, getting Josh Jacobs out in space, allowing Darren Waller to attack the middle of this Broncos defense. If they can find a way to consistently attack the Bills defensively, just spreading the ball out, getting all those players in space, then they have a good strategy in this one. However, I like the matchups. Bills running defense has been outstanding this season so far. So it's going to be a tough time for them to try to get Josh Jacobs going, which is the identity of this Raiders offense. And also, Darren Waller's going to be matched up against Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, Patrick Chung, Micah Hyde, who are all great in guarding tight ends. So look for Sean McDermott to scheme up, try to take away Darren Waller from this passing attack, make Derek Carr beat you with other players, which, so far this season, it looks like we really don't know who that second option is in the receiving game for the Raiders. Is it Henry Ruggs? Is it 89, the rookie? We really don't know if it's not Josh Jacobs or it's not Darren Waller. And I think Sean McDermott has the players to take away from this Raiders offense. So, it comes down to the Bills in this one. If the Bills are who we think they are in this new, AFC East favorites, then I think they can just wash this team, honestly, with the star power they have on both sides of the field. But if they get complacent in this one, Josh Allen makes some mistakes offensively and let the Raiders stay in this game with their potent running game and keep Josh Allen off the field, it could be a lot closer. Do I think that's going to happen? No. So my prediction for this game is I'm going to have the Bills. They get out to an early lead, and it's starting to feel like, maybe the Raiders are going to come back, but then the Bills step on their throat, and I'm saying 28-14 in this matchup, 2-score game.
Yeah, after we saw the Bills give up that large lead to the Rams last week, I don't think Sean McDermott is going to, commit the same mistakes once again. Derek Carr, we've seen him have some great seasons, but so far he's looked all right, but we don't really know, like as you were saying, who that number 2 target is going to be besides Darren Waller. So if that linebacking core, a great linebacking core of the Bills can just stop that run game and Darren Waller, it's going to be a tough day for Derek Carr out there. So I got the Bills in this one pretty easily. They're not going to give up this big lead once again. I got the Bills 28-10. I got the Bills 28-17. Derek Carr throws up a garbage time touchdown and they win. They lose still.
Okay. You want to take this next one?
Yeah, so let's move on to another doozy of a game. The Philadelphia Eagles are playing the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football. The 49ers are expected to win, the line is -7 for the 49ers. So let's talk about this 49ers offense. A lot of injuries on there. You see Jimmy Garoppolo is out. Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman is gone. Deebo Samuel is gone. So a lot of key, pieces that they were missing against this Giants team, but they still won pretty handedly, 36-9. So I expect the same thing against this Eagles defense. The Eagles defense have a lot of big defensive linemen, Malik Jackson and Fletcher Cox. But on the outside, Darius Slay, we saw that secondary they got lit up pretty good by Joe Burrow, who had 312 passing yards. And, they let up 23 points to this rookie who, for the most part, the offensive line hasn't been too good. So to give up 23 points to like a team like that is pretty surprising. And then Nick Mullins, he had a pretty nice game against the Giants team. He just got back in there. His first start of the season so far, 343 passing yards against the Giants. And then on the ground, the 49ers didn't have 100 rushing yards against the Giants, as I thought they would. But still a great game by them. Only 2.7 yards per carry. But this Giants team, they probably expected to, stop the run, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo out. But in this game, I definitely think the 49ers are going to pound the ball once again against this Philadelphia team. Their defense, the Philadelphia defense has looked all right. They gave up 48 rushing yards against the Bengals. So, but I expect Jerick McKinnon to have a great game, and Nick Mullins, he can just game manage, and they'll win this game pretty easily.
Real quick, also George Kittle. He will return to this offense. So another great weapon for Nick Mullins in this 49ers offense with the return of George Kittle in this game. making it harder for the Eagles defense to contain this injury-ravaged 49ers offense. But let's look at the Eagles offense. And, yeah, the big story of this season has been Carson Wentz basically torrid play. And like I said in our last episode, you really can't pin it all on him. Yes, he's played pretty poorly, but, you got to look at the situation. His receivers have a 58% catch rate. That is the lowest in the NFL through the first 3 games since 2004. They are dropping so many catchable passes. They are not making Carson Wentz's life easier than it already or harder than it already is. Because, yes, he has been playing. He has to face so many injuries. Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, always in and out of the lineup. And just like the left tackle is not really that great for them, and constant pressure. And you're going up against, there's no Nick Bosa or no Solomon Thomas, but they still have beasts on this defensive front, as we saw them just completely destroy the Giants up front last week. So it's going to be up to Carson Wentz to really try to wield this team on his shoulders and prove that he is that Pro Bowl quarterback. He is that all-pro quarterback that we saw from 2017 when he was on his MVP season, and we haven't really seen since. So limiting mistakes against this 49ers team. If you trust this 49ers offense and you think that, you really need to push the ball down the field, I don't really trust them. I think you can play conservative in this game. If you can go on drives where you might be playing conservative, just using Miles Sanders in the running game, who has proven to be a good running back for this offense, using him, utilizing your tight ends. Dallas Goedert will be out for this game, but you still have Zach Ertz. Receivers on the outside. Jalen Reagor is going to play in this game. Greg Ward Jr. is a solid target. So you don't need to go for these kill shots. You don't need to throw the ball in the tight windows. We don't need to. Because quite frankly, you're playing against an offense that you can probably say, I want you to stretch the entire field and score on me. I trust the Eagles defense in a sense to limit the 49ers offensive attack. And if they can keep the 49ers from getting all the way down the field, then I think that's a good game plan for the Eagles in this matchup. So look for Carson Wentz to play a little more conservative than usual, running the ball, just chewing the clock. And this is going to be a low-scoring game on a Sunday night. But I have the Eagles in this matchup upsetting the 49ers in Santa Clara. I have the Eagles 17-14.
I think this game is going to come down to is Carson Wentz going to be able to protect the ball? We saw him last week. He had 2 interceptions against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. So how many is he going to have against this 49ers defense, which is 10 times better? And then are they going to run the ball a lot with Miles Sanders, as you were saying? Are they going to get that run game going? And, maybe they don't have to play, as aggressive as they would have normally against this 49ers team. But I think the 49ers, they're at home. Nick Mullins had a pretty good game. If they can just run the ball against this Eagles defense, they're going to win this game pretty handedly. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring game still. It's going to be 17-10 49ers.
All right, interesting. So now we move on. That is the final slate of games for the Sunday games. A lot of good ones in there, a lot of blowouts, but every NFL game is going to be exciting no matter what. So now we're going to move on to the Monday Night Football game featuring – let me pull it up real quick.
It's going to be the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Green Bay Packers.
Thank you. Sorry. So we have the Atlanta Falcons. Is it in Atlanta or Green Bay?
Yeah, it's going to be in Green Bay, and the Packers are -7.5.
Okay. So obviously 2 different tales for these teams. You have a 3-0 Packers team who just came off a massive win on Sunday night, heading to you said to Atlanta?
Yeah, no, it's going to be in
Green Bay. So they're going back home, and they're facing this Falcons team that just blew another fourth quarter lead. And, it's the tale of 2 teams. One team's going up, another team's going far down. So the biggest thing I want to look at in this matchup is going to be the Falcons offense trying to rebound against this Packers defense. We saw the Packers defense on Sunday night have a good enough game to win, but not a great game. They were physically pushed around by the Saints offensive line. They let Alvin Kamara get the best of them on so many opportunities, but they made the plays in the end that gave them a position to win. They got a fumble on Taysom Hill late in that game, and then a clutch 3-and-out towards the end to really put distance between them and the Saints late in that game. So look again in this game for this bend don't break Packers defense. They're going to let up big plays down the field. Calvin Ridley looks like a monster. Definitely like one of the best receivers in the league now with his just sharp route running and his athletic ability. Did you hear is Julio going to be in
Julio
this
Jones
game?
will be playing in this game.
Okay, so they're getting Julio back on offense. So look for those two to have a better game. Even though I praise Jair Alexander, look for Matt Ryan to try to get those two the ball. But they're going to be in a position in this game where, they're probably not going to blow a lead. They're going to be down in this game most of the time. So it's going to be on Matt Ryan to try to will this team back and reclaim that Matty Ice moniker that he lost, according to this podcast. So just a big thing is if you can somehow get into this game, keeping it close going into the fourth quarter and just proving like you can, come back. You can come back, Atlanta. You don't always have to be having teams come back against you. You can come back. And if they can somehow keep this game single digits going in the fourth quarter, give Matt Ryan a chance to push this ball down the field, they can do it. Will they? Probably not.
Yeah, and let's flip on over to the other side of the ball. Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones both looking at the top of their positions right now. Aaron Jones probably, top 3 running back in the NFL. He's second in the league in rushing. He had an all right game against the Saints defensive line. We know they're a really good unit. But Aaron Jones, 16 for 69 and a touchdown. And then Aaron Rodgers, you saw him throwing those deep balls down the field to Allen Lazard. But I think Davante Adams will be back in this game. So it's going to be Davante Adams, Allen Lazard, and then
So actually, Allen Lazard and Davante Adams are going to be out for this game.
They confirmed out.
Allen Lazard just had a core surgery, so he is going to be out, and Davante Adams is doubtful. So Packers insider says he is going to be a game time decision, but due to the matchup, they're probably not going to force him to play. They have a bye week next week, so they're probably going to bring him back after the bye.
Oh, so you know what? That changes up this game a lot more for this Packers offense. You're missing Allen Lazard. You're probably missing Davante Adams. So it's going to come down to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Mercedes Lewis, and how, they can get open against this Falcons defense, which has allowed, gave up 188 passing yards and 3 touchdowns to Nick Foles just in the fourth quarter alone last week. But as you were saying, this Packers offense, lit up that Saints defense, but it mostly came down to penalties, by that Saints defense. So if this Falcons defense can, stay disciplined, not commit any turnovers, stop Aaron Jones in that running game, force Aaron Rodgers to throw it to his, lesser-known targets, stop Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones from going out and getting those, short little dump-off passes in the flats. They can hold Aaron Rodgers and this offense, close enough to where Matt Ryan can maybe go out there and win this game for them. So it's going to be pretty close in this one, especially with Davante Adams most likely missing and Allen Lazard a guaranteed out.
So I think in this game it's going to be the battle of the running attacks. So obviously without those 2 star receivers in this game, Aaron Rodgers is still going to be effective in the passing game. But this Falcons defense, which is the second to worst defense in the NFL, has not looked sharp so far this season. I mean, you said the fourth quarter stats for Nick Foles alone. That's enough troublesome right there. But, I mean, just getting this Packers team off the field is going to be such a struggle for this Falcons defense, which has been undisciplined. And they just don't have the talent on that side of the ball to really help their offense out whatsoever. So look for Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams to be used a lot in the running game and the passing game. We saw them use another running back as well. I forgot his name. A.J. Dillon, the rookie they drafted. He got a few carries. So look for him to split some carries as well in this one. I think with this Falcons team, you have to worry about the mental state they're going through. All they've heard the last 2 weeks is you cannot win a game, no matter how much you're winning by, no matter how much you're losing by. So are they going to come out in this game, chip on their shoulders, trying to prove we are here, we're not going to be let down? No, they're not, because they're a joke. And they're going to lay down and let Green Bay – they're going to lay down and let Green Bay do whatever the hell they want to them. It's going to be a complete, utter blowout. I have Green Bay in this one, 37-10.
Okay, well, that is just ridiculous, first of all. And second of all, I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to win this game. I'm putting my fist down. The Atlanta Falcons will win this game. Green Bay Packers, 3-0, but who have they played? A suspects Vikings team, which is garbage. Detroit Lions team, which is garbage. A Saints team, I won't say they're garbage. They're missing Michael Thomas. Drew Brees, doesn't have that same arm strength that he used to have. So this Packers team is going to go home. They're 3-0. They're going to feel confident. And this Falcons team's a storm has been brewing in Atlanta. I know Matt Ryan watched that video. of our overreactions earlier this week, and he knows the profane word that I called him. So he's preparing for this week. He's going to be mentally ready. Their defense is going to go out there, and they're going to put on a show, especially against this Packers offense, which is missing a lot of pieces. And they're going to win this game. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones is back. Calvin Ridley, you see the breakout season he's having. And Todd Gurley, there's a lot of Todd Gurley slander going on, but you know what? He has 200 rushing yards in the season so far. So not bad so far by him. So I got the Falcons in this game. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I got the Falcons 28-24 on Monday Night Football.
You know what? You convinced me.
Oh,
No. Listen. You convinced me. I'm gonna go 27-10 instead.
Okay.
Not 37. It'll be
Okay.
27-10 Packers. They'll put in their first round pick Jordan Love in the fourth quarter, get him some reps. So yeah, that'll be the situation.
Well, I guess that about wraps it up for this episode of the Lewis and Laraib podcast.
Locks and upsets.
Oh, yes. Okay, so this week you get to start off with your first lock. So who is that going to be for you?
Man, oh, man. We have a lot of lopsided matchups this week. I mean, there's the easy ones to choose. The Jets are winning right now. It makes me think of a team. Sam Darnold had a 46-yard touchdown run. Good for him. Regardless, the NFL teams, not the Jets that we're talking about right now.
Oh, man.
My lock of the week, Ravens coming off a really tough loss against Kansas City on a short week, granted, but they're going to go to Washington, and I just don't see them losing that game to the football team. I like the Ravens as my lock.
Yep, and for my lock, I will have to go with the Los Angeles Rams going against the New York Giants at home. The Rams minus 12.5. There's no way Daniel Jones can get anything going, especially against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on that Rams defense. So it's going to be a pretty easy game for them. I got the Rams as my lock. And then for my upset, we just talked about it. Falcons or the Green Bay Packers are minus 7.5 against the Falcons, and I got the Falcons in this game. Overhyped Green Bay Packers team. I got them in. I have them, number 3 ranked in my top 5 rankings so far, heading through week 3. But I think they're just going to be too overconfident, and this Falcons team has something to prove so far in this season. So the Falcons will be my upset.
And my upset of the week, I will be taking the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Houston. It's a 4-point game, so that makes it upset worthy. I like the offensive identity of this Vikings team against the Texans' offensive identity. I think Dalvin Cook's going to have a great game, and this is Kirk Cousins' get-back game, including Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen in that offense. And Deshaun Watson is just not going to be enough for him to will this team back. So
I would have thought at week 2 you would have learned your lesson after I picked the Vikings to beat the Colts. But
you know what I learned? I learned the Colts are a damn good defense.
That's for sure. I have them on my fantasy team, and
Same
number
here.
1 scoring defense.
Bring in the money.
Yep, that's for sure.
All right, so that will conclude this week's prediction episode of the Lewis and Laraib podcast. If you made it this far, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe. We thank all of you for all your support we've had so far. We are now on Twitter and we're on Instagram, so go follow us. Go like our posts over there. Show us some love. Any last remarks, Laraib?
Yeah, if you have any comments or concerns, just leave them down. We'll address them in the comment section below. But besides that, another week of NFL football, so that's something to be thankful for. The Titans and the Steelers game was delayed. So that's going to be interesting to look at going, further into the season. We'll look at that as it goes along. But besides that, Thanks everyone for watching.
All right. Peace out.
All right. See y'all.